You do everything right. You buy a beautiful houseplant, you find it a nice spot, and you make sure it's watered. But eventually, the stems droop, the leaves turn yellow, and when you check the dirt, it is soaking wet. When a plant sags, the immediate instinct is to assume it's thirsty. Most of us reach for the watering can and give it another drink. This creates a frustrating cycle. The soil stays wet for weeks. You keep trying to help, and yet the plant continues to decline. Think of roots like lungs. They need constant oxygen from small air pockets in the dirt. In nature, soil cycles between wet and dry. Inside a container, water fills every microscopic gap, completely blocking oxygen from reaching the roots. This is root hypoxia. The soil is holding on to so much moisture that oxygen cannot reach the plant, causing it to slowly and silently suffocate. If the moisture is cutting off the oxygen, we have to look at why the water is trapped in that pot for weeks at a time. This graphic illustrates the problem with different potting mixes. Standard or cheaper soils, especially those meant for outdoor use, act like a heavy sponge. They are completely dense. Even if the top layer feels dry to the touch, the dirt deep inside is compacted and saturated. Then there is the container itself. Decorative pots often lack drainage holes, meaning gravity pulls the water down until it hits a solid wall. It creates a hidden pool of standing water at the very bottom, submerging the lowest roots. The scale of the container also matters. A common misconception is that putting a small plant in a massive pot gives the roots more room to grow. This overlay highlights the reality of an oversized pot. Think of the root system like a small sponge inside a bucket of wet sand. The roots only pull moisture from the tight absorption zone immediately surrounding them. That leaves the remaining dirt untouched, but that vast volume of wet soil evaporates slowly. Eventually, that excess moisture seeps right back into the root zone, keeping it continuously soaked. Between the dense, sponge-like dirt, hidden pools at the bottom, and an oversized container, you end up with a complete physical trap. Water enters, but it has no structural way to exit. The physical container is only half the equation. We also have to look at the room itself and the biological engine driving the plant's water usage, photosynthesis. This graph tracks the direct relationship between light and water consumption. As ambient light levels fall into the dim zone, the plant's water processing rate drops off sharply. If your plant is sitting in a dark corner, it isn't photosynthesizing, which means it isn't using water. When combined with a cool room and stagnant air, evaporation stalls entirely. This leads to a common mistake: watering on a strict calendar schedule. Watering every week, regardless of whether the dirt actually needs it. By following a schedule instead of checking the dirt, you pour new water directly over the lingering, unevaporated moisture. You stack water on top of water, pushing the root system past its breaking point. Plant death is rarely a single event. It is a systemic failure. Dense soil traps the water, low light stalls biological demand, and a rigid watering schedule continuously loads the system until the oxygen flow stops completely. Restoring the balance between water and air is a simple mechanical process. Start by breaking up the density. Mixing in materials like perlite or coco coir forces physical air gaps into the dirt, creating an airy texture. You also need to ensure the container has drainage holes, so gravity can pull excess water out of the pot. Next, downsize the container so the pot snugly fits the root system. You also have to replace the watering calendar with a physical check. Use your finger to feel the top 2 inches of dirt. If it's still moist, wait. Finally, adjust the environment. Moving the plant to a spot with brighter ambient light and better airflow around it naturally accelerates its biological engine, allowing it to process water efficiently. Once the wet-to-dry cycle normalizes, the physiological recovery begins. The roots resume breathing, the stems regain their structural integrity, and the smell of decay clears. Effective plant care is the management of an entire environmental system. Once you balance the dirt, the light, and the airflow, the guesswork disappears. To see how to time your watering with confidence, check out our next video, where we break down exactly when to water any indoor plant.